Hey, it's John and Mike, brew-dudes.com, and 3 months ago we chose our 12th pick of the Jar of Destiny Homebrewing Challenge, and the first pick we're going to taste from that is Mike's pick. He picked 26A from the 2015 BJCP guidelines. That is a Trappist Single. Trappist Single.
Yep.
So this is the brothers beer.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so Trappist Single is typically the style that you don't see getting released from the Trappist breweries. It's historically sort of like the beer that was kept within the monastery, or at least within the grounds for the monks to
daily
consume.
rations.
Whereas, you know, your Dubbel, Tripel, and stuff like that, and your blonde and your Dubbel, those are the things that would be being released for sale. So by definition, then this is supposed to be a slightly lower ABV than what we're used to for the rest of those Belgian Trappist beers. The guidelines talk about this should be noticeably bitter, a little bit of a fruity ester component from the yeast, but all in balance. Comparing this to Belgian blonde ale, it should be noticeably more bitter. I think the BJCP mentions that Trappist Single is really more like a low alcohol triple than it is sort of like a lower alcohol blonde ale. So that's the sort of characteristics I was going for, trying to focus in on that. With all these beers, the key is fermentation and the yeast choice. Yep. So we'll get to that in a second.
Highly attenuated.
So this beer, I do 3.5 gallon batches for these things. So this is 94% Dingemans Pils, because I love that Pilsner malt anyway, but that's Belgian Pils. And then the rest of it, 6% Carapils, just to help give it a little bit of body, support foam, blah, 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 but basically keeping it super simple. In my mash regime, I had a little lactic acid. I did 2 grams of gypsum, 1 gram of calcium chloride, 1 gram of magnesium chloride, just to get the minerals I needed for pH, but also I start with spring water, which is basically almost RO. The hops on this thing, I did an ounce at 60 minutes of Styrian Golding, and but the Styrian that I could get a hold of was only 2.8% alpha acid. So knowing that it was supposed to be noticeably bitter, even though it's 1 ounce in 3.5 gallons, I was a little bit nervous, so I bumped it a little bit with just 6 grams of Nugget, because I had it at high alpha, 14.8. Sure. So altogether, the IBUs for bitterness in this is about 38, 40 IBUs. And then at 10 minutes, just to try to make sure I got some floral aromatics off of at least the hops, it's a full ounce of the same Styrian at 10 minutes to go. I boiled this for about 65 to 70 minutes, just waiting to hit gravity. And then the yeast on this one is a little bit interesting. I went with the Fermentis BE-256, which I've never used before, but I did some reading on it, and it's it's in that vein. I felt like the few things that I had available to me, like Trappist or Abbey ales, I felt like we're going to be a little bit too aggressive phenolically. And this one sort of promised to deliver some fruitiness, although my last Belgian Jar of Destiny beer, I think had a little more fruit in that one than this does, but we'll talk about it. And this, for mashing this, I went for an extended mash. I did 75 minutes at 149 for just a long, lower temperature mash for fermentability, and then I ramped up to 168 for 15 minutes to hold. So, but ramping it, you're getting even more fermentability there. I fermented this. It started out at about 65 degrees in the cool basement for 3 days. Then I put the heat belt on it and let it rise up to about 70 or so to finish out. And it was in the fermenter for a solid 3 weeks. So trying to get ultimate fermentability here. So it started off at 1048 and finished around 10009. So that's somewhere around 5.5%, just under 6% ABV, which I think fits the guidelines okay. So there we go. So that's the basic recipe.
All right. Well, appearance, pale yellow.
It was clear coming out of the fermenter. So that little bit of haze is definitely like a chill haze, which will clean up in time. But
Yep.
so.
And then in terms of the head, it was a big, billowy,
Super billowy head
and
when we
white.
poured it.
Fantastic lacing. Really good. Aroma, I'm trying to pull it out. It's a lot of yeast esters off of
Yeah, there's a lot.
that, right? Kind of flowery. Let's see if it's fruitish. But it is it's more of like geranium or some kind of flower.
Yeah. There isn't really a fruity ester component to it. It's just mostly that geranium earthiness from the Styrian and from the fermentation character.
That aroma's not in the flavor. It really is very light in body. Yes, you've pumped in a lot of carbonation, which is nice. And finish is really dry.
Yeah, it's beautifully dry.
Really
I
dry.
love, so from a brewing a Belgian beer in general standpoint, that's a success. I love the way it drinks and finishes for sure.
Yeah. I'm getting a little maybe orange peel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
It's pretty cold too, but
true. It is pretty cold, but I think that the characteristics where your non-beer fans criticize Belgian beers because they're a little too phenolic or they just have strong tastes that don't really fit their palate.
Yep.
This doesn't have that. It's like just touches.
It's like a intro to Belgian flavors, really. Yeah, I agree.
Come here, brother. Have a single.
One of these. Yeah. The funny thing is I don't really have a benchmark to gauge this against. I don't know what West Vleteren 6 tastes like. Or if I think it's the 6, right? I just don't know. So
the last time you were at the monastery, they didn't share.
Yeah, they didn't share. So just through reading, doing some research, and reading the BJCP, which this is sort of where we've ended up. I wish there was a slightly more noticeable fruit character. I was going to try and tease it out by including in that 10-minute edition a little bit of something like a Citra or a Cascade, just to trick the mind into ensuring that there was a little bit of fruit character there, right? But then I realized, well, almost all homebrew hops are garbage. So how am I supposed to find fruity hops? This works. I mean, I think these hops are great. The Styrian Gold, it works. It totally works. I think as far as being like a mid 5% beer, dry finish, a beautiful Pilsner, soft profile. It's super drinkable. I love this beer. Is it like really hitting a home run at the Trappist Single thing? Probably not. Maybe a third. Maybe a triple. Maybe we're rounding second with this one. Is it a home run? I don't think so. Super drinkable, great beer from that standpoint. But yeah.
Well, I don't have anything to compare it to either. So, this is it hits all the marks for me. I think that it looks great, tastes great. I think that the finish is dry, and I don't feel because it's so light. It's one that I could have 2 or 3, and it would be wonderful. Unlike a triple where you have one and feel like that's enough.
Yeah, you have one, you really enjoy it, and you'd like to have more, but
that's fine.
I don't know, you're going to be in for it at that point.
Any other notes that you wanted to express on this beer?
I don't think so. I think this is it. I enjoyed it. Maybe playing with a different yeast strain would change it a little bit, but I'm happy with this.
What degree of challenge did this beer give you?
I was just really worried about, 2.8% alpha on hops as far as like trying to put the recipe together, knowing that that's what I was going to get when I ordered the hops. And then 2, just worrying about the fermentation and making sure that you get as complete a fermentation possible without adding sugar or anything like that, which the bigger Belgian beers you would in order to still have dryness. But this, just trying to go for it. I think I've been doing this for a while, so I just sort of feel like bringing together my assumptions about how to brew gave me a beer that finished dry. And I was like, oh, all right, great. The mashing, the recipe choice, I kept the recipe super simple just to make it work. All that came together in the way that I was
Fermentation
pretty happy
conditions,
about.
yeah, good.
So.
Well, I will give you a note on the bitterness. I think the Nugget, if you felt like that was going to save it, it did.
Yeah, there's enough bitterness there.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah, I think so. And I mean, I can't really tell you, and especially those Alpha, if those Styrian Goldings are really bringing too much to this beer, but the Nugget is a nice bittering charge, and it fits with the dry finish. I love it. So.
Cool.
All right, that's one beer down of the 12 picks for the Jar of Destiny challenge. We're going to come back to you next week with pick number 2, and we'll see how that turned out. Stay tuned. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We do this kind of thing every single week. We'll do it again next week. For John and Mike, brew-dudes.com. Brew on.
Cheers.